What's everybody? It's Kendall, and we're here, day 16 of 100 days of codes. And it's great to be with you guys again on this beautiful night at 9:21 p.m. I mean, why do I choose this time? Because it's a beautiful time. The kids are in beds. Everybody's doing other things. It's dark outside. It's a lovely time to break down the day, break down our problems, break down the day. And you know what? Get into day 16 of 100 days of codes. So obviously we've been exploring a lot of different things these last few days, where we've been learning all these different things. I've been on this journey myself, so currently I've been doing this now for 16 days, the 100 Days of Code Challenge. I'm going to be doing this for 100 days, doing video blogs, doing sort of capturing my journey, these sorts of things. And you know, we can look back and we could say, wow, look how far that we've come. So today, we know with 100 Days of Code, the rules are, number 1, we code 1 hour a day. 2, we keep ourselves accountable publicly. 3, we connect with the community of Twitter. And 4, we keep a daily log of our progress, emotions, and feelings. So that's a little bit about the 100 Days of Code, of something that we're doing every single day without fail. What else are we doing? We're also on week 3 of 100 days, of School of Codes. Whew, it's been an amazing day. So it's Tuesday, we're on week 3. And we've been learning about this week about user experience, or UX, and we've been learning about UI, or user interfaces. And so that's been super interesting. Day 2, we've had more guest lecturers from the amazing company that is Nestor, which has been really, really cool to learn about that. We had the CTO, and we also had somebody who's a UX, UI designer from that brand and that company. Got to hear a little bit about the sort of the journey to, he came from, the UX, UI designer came from a background that wasn't in tech. He did a course much like the boot camp that we're doing, and now, fast forwards, he now has a job in that with this company, Nestor. And so we got to hear some really, really cool stuff from them about sort of the journey of what that's like, what the company's like, how they work through things, how they do sort of agile methodologies in their meeting. Lots of cool Q&As, lots of fun on that regard. So that was really cool to hear sort of some of their perspectives, and we did some really cool sort of interactive things on that. We get to really get a bird's eye view into sort of what they do on a day-to-day basis, and sort of what that journey looks like, how the iterations come, like sort of how they give feedback, how they meet with one another, things like that. So that was super cool. Then later on in the day, we started exploring with Liz about sort of, you know, our own, about having design thinking, right? About the user experience. So how do we experience products, and what is sort of a way of thinking that's a design way of thinking. And so we looked at things like, for example, a situation where, imagine you need to buy a pair of shoes, and you know, you think straight away the feeling you have is that you have need, you have lack, but once you have the shoes, you're gonna have confidence. It's about sort of the feeling, right? The feeling of that journey. And you know, next you might do a Google search, and you might look for those shoes, and you know, might come up with 300 results for the shoes that you're looking for, and you might say, wow, I feel really excited about that. So again, it's linked to sort of the feeling. You're feeling hopeful, and these sort of things. Then as well, we maybe we Google buy shoes online, and you know, we find our website, right? We feel hopeful. Then we navigate to the shoes category, and we're feeling excited. And we have the 300 results, so we're excited about that as well. But we realize that there's no way to filter the results in this journey, so then we feel a bit disappointed. Next, we scroll through several pages of results, and then we feel frustration. We find a pair of shoes, we add it to the cart, we go to the checkout page, and we feel super excited about that we finally got there. But it's a really long form to go through before you can get to that sort of checkout process. So you end up leaving the website. And so it was all talking about sort of user experience and that sort of thing. Then we talked about the design process, and sort of talking about, so what is the design process that goes into making modern applications. Talked a little bit about that stuff. And we talked about the 5-stage process, sort of that you empathize. So you research your user's needs. That you, number 2, you define. So you state your user's needs and problems. 3, you ideate. Okay, ideate. Sounds like a funny word. You prototype. So you start to create solutions, and then you test, you try your solutions out, right? And so we explored those sort of with a bird's eye view, look over the top. And then we sort of went more depth on those different things. And so the task that we had as pairs is then we were meant to take that 5-step process and then sort of create our own boot camp, right? So the one that they had up there was the School of Yak Milking, which we did strongly consider the School of Yak Milking or something like that. However, we ended up with a fitness boot camp because it was easy to sort of go through the process of knowing how to empathize. So first we sort of talked about what empathizing meant, the first step in the design process. And it was that we should gain an empathetic understanding of the problem we're trying to solve. Empathy is crucial to human-centered design. That's what she spoke about. And so understanding the needs. So we sort of used our own journey, like before we went to School of Code. So how did we feel before applying? What was it like to apply? Was there anything difficult about applying? And translate that empathy that we feel to people applying for our own boot camp. So ours was for the fitness boot camp. So then we had to sort of say, okay, well, we felt this way in applying for this boot camp. So how would they feel applying for the fitness boot camp? And translate those things over. The next step was then we defined, right? So we sort of created personas of different people, and we used this really cool website to create the user story. So for example, we used this sort of user story that says, as a, and we used an example of somebody who's overweight. So we said, as someone that's overweight, I want to lose weights so that I can feel good about myself and the way I look in the mirror, right? Real simple. But that's the user story, and you can use that for anything. So they gave some examples of how you can do that, but that was just ours. But there's other ones that you can use. And then we created a persona. And with the persona, there was this website where basically you could put in the person's name, you could put their age, you could put where they worked, all those sort of things, and build up sort of a picture, in their job. Do they use the phone? Do they use email? What do they prefer? Things like this. And so you start to build up this sort of character form of this information you can work with. So, for example, our guy was Bob, and it was based on Bob from Fight Club. This big, overweight guy. He's based on Meatloaf, basically. This guy, and we found out that Bob, he liked face to face, and he liked over the phone. So we wouldn't send him an email. So there were some interesting things that you could take from these sort of. You can make the user experience better and connect better with that sort of thing. So we were meant to ask in the define stage, what are users' needs? What are the business needs? What does the application process need to be in order to be effective? So for someone like Bob, we have to think, well, how does this application process, how is it effective? We can give him the best program, but also we can tailor it in such a way and that sort of thing. The next thing was idea aids, right? And so it was thinking outside of the box, right? And it came from Walt Disney. And he said that all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. That's actually one of my favorite quotes. I have that as my wallpaper on my computer. It says exactly that, the Walt Disney quote. So I love that. And obviously with Disney, he came up with this concept of sort of ideation, where essentially there was a way of dreaming and a way of thinking about things with his Imagineers, his team of people who imagined and dreamed about, where they came up with theme parks and movies and all these creative things. And you can use that same journey in creating user experiences. So we talked about there are 3 rooms in this thing. You have the dreamer room, the realist room, and the critic room. So in the dreamer room, you go to the biggest extent of what are the biggest things you could possibly ever think of with relation to ideas. Go to all out. If money wasn't an issue, well, what would you do for that thing? The next thing is the realist. So you might say, okay, well, here's the things we can realistically do from that. Maybe they're not all pipe dreams. Maybe there are some things we could do in here. And then lastly, it's critic is the last filter. And in those days, they would obviously go from room to room. For us, we just sort of went from task to task. And so the dreamer says, what if? Brainstorming, no judgment, divergent thinking, what are our dreams and wishes and no limitations. Realist is select the best ideas, convergent thinking, how would we make this happen, starting to form a plan. And the realist, so the critic is the last one. The next step was in prototyping. You sort of take what you have like a concrete idea, and then you sort of bring it forwards to where there's sort of maybe a really basic model, but you can identify the solution a little bit better. So then we test it in the real world and we put it before them. So we describe our solution and user flow to our target user. So we might have a workflow of saying, okay, well, this is how they go about their journey. They land on the websites. Then it says, do you want to sign up for this form? Do you want to be contacted this way? So it's sort of, how does the application process go? We test it with real users and we get real data. It's not imagination, it's real world data. And that's what we did. We took our workflows of sort of how we saw our fitness bootcamp going, and then we presented it to other groups. So that went really cool. So that was a little bit about some of the stuff that we did today. We also did things like at the end we did UX and user interface for a lot of the day, and then like sort of nearer the ends we had some amazing opportunities to we had this tree website. And with the tree website, what we had to do is we had to sort of, essentially we learned about things called CSS variables. And so rather than, let's say for example, you have a website and you want to change the colors of the backgrounds and the fonts and the font sizes, and you want to do it for all of the headings. Well, normally from the way that I knew before, or the way a lot of us knew before, is you would have to go to each of those headings or each of those sections and you'd have to change, so maybe H1, H2, H3, you'd have to go through and change the individual text sizes, text colors. But with CSS variables, what you can do is at the very, very top, you can put a colon and put root. And inside that root variable, you can declare variables and then the color. And then further down, when you go to like the class selector and you go to the ID selector and those sort of things, then all you have to do is just input the name of the variable, and it will input everything for you. You don't have to remember all the hex and all that sort of thing. So that was a really, really handy tool. And we had an exercise where we had to change them from the hard-coded hex to the variables that were declared in the CSS variable at the root at the top. So we had to do that. And then the coolest bit, I think, the creme de la creme, the top of the heap, was then when we got to sort of create a toggle to dark mode. So the site sort of had a light mode where it was in thing, and then we created a brand new sort of class in the CSS where we connected that to a event listener button, and when you clicked it, it toggled to dark mode. That absolutely blew my mind. I was like, this is awesome. So we had a lot of fun today. We learned a lot. Oh, we did some code wars as well earlier in the day. So we well hit our 1 hour of code today. We solved some problems. We broke down some problems. We created some dreams. Went into the dream factory, and we had lots of fun today. And then we went to a tree website or a plant website, and we toggled the dark mode. So you know what? We went to the dark side and we came back again. So we were having lots of fun today. So anyways, guys, that was day 16 of 100 days of code. And guys, we'll see you tomorrow. It's always a blessing and never a chore. So guys, keep calm, code on. It's your boy Kendall signing out. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.